I want you to imagine this. You wake up in the morning, check your phone, and realize the money in your bank account has already lost value. Overnight, not because you spent it, not because of fraud, but because your currency is collapsing. In real time. This isn't science fiction. This has happened before, and when it happens, society doesn't just struggle, it unravels. Today I want to take you through 3 of the most terrifying hyperinflation stories in human history, not as numbers, not as charts, but as lived experiences. When money became paper. Germany, after World War I, was a broken nation, crushed by war debt, humiliated by reparations. Politicians believed they had a solution. They printed money. At first it felt harmless, then prices doubled, then tripled, then exploded. By 1923, inflation was so extreme that prices were changing by the hour. People didn't carry wallets anymore. They carried suitcases. A loaf of bread that cost 250 marks in the morning cost 200 billion marks by night. Children played with banknotes like toys. People burned cash for warmth because it was cheaper than firewood. Life savings vanished. Middle-class families were erased overnight. And the most dangerous part, when money loses meaning, trust disappears. And when trust disappears, extremism walks in through the front door. History would soon pay the price. The world's most useless banknote. Fast forward almost a century. Zimbabwe, a country rich in land, resources, and hope, slowly strangled by corruption, land seizures, and reckless economic control. The government printed money to survive, again. Inflation climbed so high it stopped making sense. By 2008, prices were doubling every 24 hours. People were paid in the morning and rushed to shops before their salary became worthless by evening. The government issued a banknote worth 100 trillion Zimbabwean dollars. Let that sink in. 100 trillion, and it still wasn't enough to buy basic groceries. Hospitals collapsed. Teachers quit. Shops emptied. Eventually, people gave up on money entirely. They used US dollars, bartered goods, anything except their own currency. When a nation abandons its money, it has already lost the war. A modern collapse. This one is different because it's recent, and it happened in the age of smartphones and social media. Venezuela had oil, lots of it, but price controls, mismanagement, and endless money printing slowly poisoned the economy. Inflation didn't just rise, it devoured everything. Millions of percent. People weighed cash instead of counting it. Paychecks couldn't cover a single meal. Pensions became jokes. Doctors earned less than taxi drivers. Engineers earned less than street vendors. Families skipped meals. Children fainted in schools from hunger. And perhaps the most haunting image, people crossing borders on foot, leaving behind homes, careers, entire lives. Not because of war, but because money stopped working. Hyperinflation isn't just about prices, it's about dreams evaporating, trust collapsing, society turning inward, the future becoming impossible to plan. It destroys the invisible contract that holds civilization together. Money is faith, and when faith dies, everything follows. Every time a government prints money to escape reality, reality collects interest. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Venezuela. Different places, different times, same mistake. And the lesson? Hyperinflation doesn't arrive screaming, it arrives quietly. Then suddenly everything breaks at once. If you found this story unsettling, good. History is only useful if it makes us uncomfortable enough to remember. By the mid-2000s, inflation in Zimbabwe wasn't rising anymore. It was running. The government kept printing money, each new bill bigger than the last, like adding zeros could somehow fix a broken reality. $1,000,000 notes, $1 billion notes, then $1 trillion notes. But here's the part statistics don't tell you. People stopped looking at prices because prices were irrelevant. A woman would walk into a shop, ask how much bread cost, and the cashier wouldn't answer immediately. They'd ask a different question first. Do you want it now or in an hour? Because in 1 hour the price would be higher. Salaries were paid daily, sometimes twice a day. Workers ran from their jobs straight to markets, cash in hand, hoping to buy something, anything, before their money evaporated. ATMs became pointless. Banks limited withdrawals so tightly that it wasn't even worth standing in line. And those lines, they stretched for blocks. People waited for hours, not knowing if there would be food left by the time they reached the front. Often, there wasn't. The $100 trillion lie. When Zimbabwe introduced the $100 trillion banknote, the world laughed, but inside the country no one was laughing. That note couldn't buy a bus ticket, sometimes not even a loaf of bread. Imagine holding a piece of paper that says 100,000 on it, and knowing it's essentially worthless. Children were sent to school with backpacks full of cash, not for tuition, but because it took that much money just to buy lunch. People weighed money on scales instead of counting it. It was faster, and somehow still not enough. When society starts to fracture, hospitals ran out of supplies, doctors left the country, teachers stopped showing up, not because they didn't care, but because their salaries couldn't even cover transportation to work. Bartering returned. Bag of maize for soap, cooking oil for shoes, fuel for medicine. Money, the thing that made modern life possible, was quietly removed from the equation. And then came the final humiliation. The government abandoned its own currency, US dollars. South African rand, anything but the Zimbabwean dollar. When a nation rejects its own money, it's admitting something devastating. We don't trust ourselves. The aftermath. Savings were gone. Pensions were erased. Entire lifetimes of work reduced to nothing. People didn't just lose money. They lost time, years, decades, and even after inflation slowed, the damage remained. Because hyperinflation doesn't end cleanly, it leaves scars. Deep mistrust of institutions, fear of banks, fear of saving, fear of the future. Once you've seen money die, you never fully believe in it again. Collapse in real time. This time the world was watching. Venezuela wasn't a forgotten country. It wasn't isolated. It wasn't invisible. It had oil, more oil than almost any nation on earth. And for a while, it worked. Money flowed, subsidies expanded, life felt stable, even generous. But beneath the surface, something was breaking. Price controls told businesses what they were allowed to charge. Currency controls told people what they were allowed to buy. And when reality didn't cooperate, the printers turned on. When inflation became a blur. At first, people complained. Then they adapted. Then they stopped being able to keep up at all. Prices doubled, then doubled again, then rose so fast no one bothered changing the labels anymore. Salary that fed a family last month couldn't buy breakfast today. People were paid in stacks of bills so thick they had to be wrapped in rubber bands. And still, those stacks were often worth less than the food they were buying. Cash wasn't counted, it was measured. Professionals without value. Here's where it gets really disturbing. Doctors, engineers, university professors. Highly trained people, earning less than a bus driver, less than a street vendor, sometimes less than a single meal. A doctor's monthly salary could buy a few kilos of rice, maybe some eggs, and nothing else. Hospitals had no medicine, no gloves, no electricity. Surgeries were cancelled, not because they were complicated, but because there was no running water. Life under price controls. The government tried to protect people by freezing prices, but shelves don't listen to laws. Food disappeared. People woke up before dawn to stand in lines that wrapped around entire city blocks. They waited for hours, sometimes all day, hoping a truck might arrive. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. Mothers skipped meals so children could eat. Grandparents sold furniture, clothes, wedding rings, anything that could be traded for calories. The border walk. And then something heartbreaking happened. People left, not by plane, not with suitcases, on foot. Millions of Venezuelans crossed borders into Colombia, Brazil, and beyond, walking for days, sometimes weeks. Former professionals became street vendors overnight. Doctors cleaned tables, teachers begged. Not because they failed, but because the currency collapsed beneath their feet. This wasn't war. There were no bombs, just money, losing meaning. Digital escape. In the middle of the chaos, people found strange solutions. US dollars, cryptocurrency, mobile payments, anything that wasn't the bolivar. Some people mined crypto just to survive blackouts and inflation. Others were paid remotely by foreign companies, earning in currencies their own country could no longer provide. When citizens trust math on a screen more than the bills in their hands, the system is already broken. The quiet trauma. Hyperinflation leaves invisible damage. Even when prices slow, even when things stabilize, people don't relax. They spend immediately. They hoard goods. They distrust banks. Because once you've watched your money die, you never forget how fast it happened. Closing bridge. Weimar Germany taught the world that hyperinflation can destroy democracies. Zimbabwe showed how it can erase a currency completely. Venezuela proved it can happen in the modern, connected world. Different eras, same ending. Money fails, and when it does, society follows.